Calm down. What's going? Boy, a baby boy. Oh no, what happened? What's the matter? Okay, he's naked. He's been outside in the snow.
911 dispatcher Renee Park took the call and got help on the way.
Royalton First Response, respond to the Gary Zimmerman residence.
When that's a child, your heart just falls to your stomach.
But she stayed calm and kept the boy's father on the line.
Sir, don't hang up. Don't hang up, sir. What are the directions to your house?
Take Highway 10, south to Royalton. It's just a couple blocks off the highway. Just a couple blocks off the highway, off the Highway 10. Please, hurry.
Is he breathing, sir?
Hell, he's froze.
Can you feel on his neck for some heartbeats? On the side of his neck.
Or up in his arm.
Please, do something. I think he's dying. Dad, please.
54 in your head.
Oh, God. I can't feel nothing. What can I do?
Try breathing.
Renee's next step was to talk the boy's father through life-saving CPR.
Try breathing into his mouth, sir.
Okay.
That was our only hope for first response before the first response team gets there, is to help him with the CPR.
Okay.
Put some puffs of air. Cover his mouth and nose with your mouth and blow.
Yes.
2 short puffs.
Tilt his head back and pinch his nose. And when you breathe into him, you should be able to see his chest go up and down.
The chest is going up and down.
Is it going up
The
and down?
4-year-old was taken to a local hospital while paramedics continued CPR. Once in emergency, Kyle's little heart started to beat. Amid hopes, efforts to save his life were enough.
Jacob Wetterling and Corinne Erstad have yet to be found, but they have not been forgotten. Their cases have sounded a wake-up call to help prevent future tragedies. The majority of abductions happen away from school, but it's the schools that are becoming the battlegrounds to arm kids with the knowledge they need to protect themselves.
What else could you do about that, do you think?
In Mr. Caroline's 5th grade class at Moose Lake Elementary School, learning about abduction is just as important as learning math and science.
Abduction is getting to be a growing problem, especially with all the things that we're hearing on the news, and so our school district is making a conscious effort to inform the kids about the problems and risks of being abducted.
5th and 6th graders are most often targeted by kidnappers because they're old enough to go places alone but too young to fight back. That point was driven home when Jacob's mother, Patty Wetterling, spoke to the class last year.
I think they realized for the first time that being in a small town is not necessarily a safe place, that it could happen anywhere. And I think the message is starting to hit the kids a lot more.
If you walk in groups, it would be better, and we should probably not walk alone.
Experts say children also need to be aware that not all kidnappers are strangers.
It could be a friend of your parents or something. That it could be a newer friend.
Chances are these children will never have to use the safety tips they've learned, but with the proper tools, chances are even greater they'll be prepared. In Moose Lake, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
There are as many opinions about how Clinton's tax plans will affect investments as there are economists, but the prevailing opinion is that for the typical investor, things won't change very much.
We have in Duluth, in the Duluth Superior area, in the average investor, more of a philosophy of what's smart for me now, in a few years, and way down the road. And with that philosophy, or with that type of thinking, the philosophy is a little bit different in that it isn't so timing oriented.
As for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, Tuesday saw a sharp decline that may have been triggered by Clinton's speech the night before. In anticipation of tonight's address, the market saw frenzied trading with little result, finishing up just 2.5 points. Experts say stability may be some time away.
The stock market reacts when they're not sure of what's going to happen, whether it's war, for example, or here is a situation, will the Clinton's plan pass or not? And that's this. indecision will have a bigger factor regarding the short-term market than anything else.
Another type of investment thought to hinge on Clinton's spending plans are municipal bonds used for public construction projects. Although more bonds are expected to become available, they may not perform well.
Short term, the bond market probably does look to be a little bit better, but our economic indicators will tell us that the bond market through 1993 and 1994 will be relatively flat. If bond investors expect to get anything more than the coupon and their income, they're going to be sadly mistaken.
The bottom line for investors is to spend money carefully and be prepared for more downs than ups in the next few months. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
No, this is a really exciting addition to Voyageurs National Park. Like you say, we have the wildlife and we've got the natural scene, and we also have the historical scene, but some of those, like the Voyageurs, there's not too much you can see about them. But here we have something that's really visible that the visitors can come out and see.
In 1893, gold was discovered on Little American Island in what is now Voyageurs National Park. Mining companies staked claims and began operations that lasted nearly a decade. But in the park, there's little sign that the gold mining boom ever took place.
See, over here on this spot over here, you can see there's an old wheel that was we think was part of the hoisting machinery. There would have been a main frame that stood over the mine shaft to pull the ore out of the mine.
There are several buildings on the islands and a small town called Rainy Lake City nearby, where hard Minnesota ore was processed into gold. 7 mining sites have been found in the area. Most were small open pits or horizontal shafts, but on Little American Island there was a vertical shaft 210 feet deep.
I think it was 45 feet, and then there was a drift or a side shaft that went out for a ways, and they took out, there was a big chamber that they hollowed out. It was probably about 30 feet high and 30 feet wide and about 20 feet the other dimension. So it was a huge area that they chambered out. Now, as far as what actually exists down there, we're not positive because we don't have any records or any drawings of the mine shafts. We're going on what people said were here, but the historical record is a little bit scattered.
Voyageurs Park has been looking back into its history, looking for new ways to promote the park. Local supporters say the mine will answer critics who say the park has not been properly developed.
This is a new thing for us to do for Voyageurs National Park and for the community. And yes, it is about time that Voyageurs National Park is not such a secret.
3 sites will be developed in the park to highlight a different kind of Voyageur and bring back a nearly forgotten piece of Minnesota history. In Voyageurs National Park, Derek Hines, News 6.
Duluth police, working with the FBI, are tracking numerous leads in the wake of last week's broad daylight robbery of First Bank in downtown Duluth. This clear bank surveillance picture showing a man seemingly in his late 60s or early 70s triggered a flood of calls to authorities with suggestions as to who he might be. Authorities are checking leads and are confident they'll get their man. After all, the arrest and prosecution rate for bank robbers is close to 77%.
I really can't see anyone motivated to rob anybody, rob a bank specifically. They get minimal amount of funds out of a bank because the banks just don't keep that much on hand. The penalty can carry up to 25 years in prison.
But that hasn't seemed to deter a number of bank robbers in recent months. This latest rush began in the spring of 1992 with 2 bank jobs. Prior to that, there hadn't been a bank heist in over 2 years in the Arrowhead region. The North Shore Bank of Commerce in the downtown Skywalk began the spree. On March 27th of last year, the branch bank was robbed, but the surveillance picture was very unclear, making any identification difficult. Shortly after that, the St. Louis Bank in Lakeside was hit. The robber wore a hood, once again making identification extremely difficult. No one has been arrested in either of those crimes. Then there were 5 bank holdups in a row, for which suspects were quickly arrested and charged. Then finally last week's robbery at First Bank. The FBI is still working closely with Duluth police and have several good leads which they're following up. Some speculate it's a sign of tough economic times, but authorities suggest it has more to do with copycat crimes. They say would-be robbers see banks housing substantial sums of money, and when they hear about heists, it seems it's too hard to resist. But resist they should. Authorities stress bank robberies have among the lowest rate of success of any crime. At First Bank in Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Their status as companies. PMA tries to
$300 for a prescription. Another
do research to identify those compounds that only one of them will make it to drug product.
I will be working with Bond to try to identify other programs in the country that are already working with individual companies in the industry to access more easily those drugs.
Graduation, going home, prisoner, no way,
It looks like a scene out of an Army boot camp, but these men aren't serving in the military. They're serving time at the Willow River Correctional Facility.
Some inmates tend to want to just sit back in their cell and kick back and eat Twinkies and eat potato chips.
But unlike a normal prison, that doesn't happen here. At 5 o'clock every morning, inmates are put through rigorous physical training. The rest of the day is filled with education and chemical dependency classes and lots of hard labor. The program is the first of its kind in Minnesota.
They're going to have a chance to get sober for 6 months here. That's a good start to stay sober when they hit the street. For a lot of these guys, chemical dependency is the main issue. They'll have an opportunity to get their high school diploma while they're here, which will enhance their opportunities for success to get a job on the street.
Corrections officers say the goal of boot camp is to help stop prison overcrowding. Inmates get shorter sentences for volunteering to come here. Officers hope the discipline learned here will keep them from coming back.
I think it makes a big difference. I mean, some of these people come in thinking it's just for their time cut because they do get a little shorter sentence for doing it. But once they get here and start doing the program, they realize they can't just skate through it.
The majority of inmates are first-time offenders. James Martin was arrested on drug charges. He says the last 5 months have changed his life.
I learned more about myself, more self-esteem. Just learned more about myself, period.
The program is still very new. It began last October.
It's too soon to tell whether or not this program will keep offenders in the community and out of the prison system. Correctional officials say the true test begins after they leave here.
And according to one inmate, he plans to pass that test with flying colors.
Plan on getting out, get married, and get a job. Stay out of places like this.
In Willow River, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
But they did identify a couple of small chunks of a type of asbestos pipe insulation referred to as air cell. And those apparently were carried downwind of the fire during the firefighting activity. And those are about the size of a postage stamp and are a white, kind of a fluffy material. Okay. So what we've asked UMD to do at this point is to go out and find a contractor, hire a contractor that can go out and pick all of that material up.
The blue car crossed across the center and hit a car up there, so we started to come to the right side to get away from him because we seen him hit the guy in front of us. About the time we got over there, he nailed us right in the side. Just flipped it around and flipped it over, and next thing I know, we're riding down the highway on our roof.
All of these cemeteries. It doesn't matter which one you go to.
All men must start taking violence against the women and children in our community personally. To not speak out in outrage and compassion is to accept by silence the violence against them.
A high cost.
The released report on renewable electricity is another report of significance for the future of Minnesota. These are alternatives which have the potential to create jobs, to stimulate our economy, and to preserve our environment.
My name is spelled with a Y-N-E on the end.
We should probably take a look for you. Okay?
So let's look ahead to the future. Miller Dwan, and I think everybody is in agreement with this, on both sides of the issue, is an asset to our community. What that role should be is in question, and again, I ask that you take a good look at that and use whatever means necessary to find that out.